Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, on multiple occasions, I have defended Khamzat Chimaev for certain relationships that he has with certain individuals. More specifically speaking, one, Kadyrov, right? The Chechen dictator. When I hear a guy like Ariel Helwani calling out Khamzat Chimaev for having a relationship with such a man, yet glazing the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, I sense a little bit of hypocrisy there, therefore I call it out, okay? Now, when I analyze the relationship between Khamzat Chimaev and Kadyrov, I'm not holding Khamzat entirely responsible or accountable for that, because I always keep in mind this is a world leader, a very powerful one at that, a violent one at that, and has the abilities to make something bad happen to you or your family members, right? Of course, which Khamzat Chimaev still has family back home in Chechnya. So whenever I think about it, I go, you know what, Khamzat, if he feared nothing back coming his way, no repercussions whatsoever, who knows what decision he would make, right? Now, maybe he would still decide to be friends with him or what have you, but we don't know. So I don't hold him all that responsible for it. However, dude, okay? However, this relationship I do hold him responsible for, right? Mohammad Hijab, in my opinion, is a disgusting human being. I'm going to show you evidence of that later on. And Khamzat Chimaev appears to be quite buddy-buddy with this Mohammad Hijab, right? Mohammad Hijab is not a world leader, not a dictator, doesn't have an army behind him, does not have the ability to make something bad happen to your friends or your family or even you, yet he has a relationship with him all the same, okay? I'm going to show you guys a clip from the podcast that they did with one another so you kind of get a feel for the conversation, whether it was jovial, professional, antagonistic, or what have you. And then I'm going to play some of the things that I find to be absolutely disgusting about Mohammad Hijab, beliefs that he will defend tooth and nail. And then you have to consider, if my favorite fighter has a relationship with somebody like this, do I want them as my favorite fighter? Do you know what I mean? And by the way, I'm not saying that because Khamzat Chimaev has a relationship with somebody like this, that he therefore holds those same beliefs, right? But I do feel like we can hold people accountable to know some of the things that the people they're associating themselves with say, some of the things that they believe, and maybe decide not to associate with those types of people. And now you might be off the bat disagreeing with me, saying, well, that's guilty by association. I don't want to be held responsible for somebody else's beliefs. But I have a feeling once I show you the things that I'm speaking about later on in this video, you're probably going to agree with me. And also, in the interest of transparency, as I was doing research for this video, I came across Viras Sahabi's done like 5 fucking podcasts with this guy at least, okay? So I lost a whole lot of respect for Viras Sahabi as well. I didn't want to appear biased just because Viras is Canadian. I am irritated that he would speak to this man because, as I said, disgusting, horrible beliefs that he will defend tooth and nail, and I think that some of them might surprise you. And this guy's got almost 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, so he's a very influential individual and is able to push these beliefs out to a very, very large audience. All right, so as I said, we're going to jump to that podcast right now. I'll play a short clip for you guys there, and then we will go from there. All right, now here we are, right? The podcast between Khamzat Chimaev and Mohammad Hijab. Now, I'm going to play a few short segments of this podcast. The vast majority of it was spent talking about religion, current conflicts, and things like that. However, there was a little bit of UFC talk in between. Now, just again, transparency, I've sped it up to 1.5 speed because Khamzat Chimaev talks very low and slow. Mohammad Hijab speaks, clearly, but also a little bit more of a slow cadence. So I just wanted to speed it up a little bit so we can get to the shit that I really want to show you guys. I'm basically showing you this so you can get a feel for the conversation, kind of get a feel for how friendly they are with one another and things like that. I'm also going to include a picture I'll put up on screen of them wrestling with one another, Khamzat Chimaev showing him some moves and shit like that. So you understand that while this is a professional relationship right now, right, they're doing a podcast with one another, doesn't necessarily mean they're friends. They did spend a little bit of time after the fact and what have you, filming content, what have you. So let's play it right now. This is Mohammad Hijab is going to ask him about some things that Sean Strickland said to Bilal Muhammad.
I don't know if you saw, but there was some back and forth between Sean Strickland and Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad said something very simple like pray for Palestine. And then Sean Strickland, he called him a coward. He attacked him. He started attacking Islam. He started attacking Bilal Muhammad. Then I said something to him myself on Twitter. I said, why didn't you mention Khamzat? Because Khamzat Chimaev, he said something similar. I said,
I just want to point out that, and I'm going to try and not pause this a whole lot, but Ariel Helwani did just copyright one of my videos, so I am trying to be a little bit careful. He just basically took a little bit of a dig at their Muslim brother, Bilal Muhammad, basically saying, like, why didn't you talk to Khamzat Chimaev? It's because you're scared of Chimaev. Chimaev's more dangerous than Bilal Muhammad, so that's why you choose to go after Bilal Muhammad. Now, one, Khamzat Chimaev was not nearly as vocal on social media as Bilal Muhammad. That's one, okay? Two, This might be a hot fucking take. A bunch of you are probably going to disagree with me. At this point in time, after everything we've seen, if I was rating who was the better overall, better well-rounded fighter, I might actually say Belal Muhammad over Khamzat Chimaev. Now, he's not as aggressive, not as entertaining, doesn't get finishes. Correct. But what he does do, he's got way crisper striking, way cleaner striking, might not be powerful, explosive, fast, what have you, definitely cleaner than Khamzat Chimaev's, and he's got way better fucking cardio. He's also got good grappling, right? Maybe not as aggressive and as dangerous as Khamzat's, but in my opinion, Belal Muhammad might be a better overall fighter, okay? But regardless, dude, just thought it was funny that he took a little dig at Belal Muhammad, probably unintentional, but regardless.
Pray for Palestine, something like that. Do you think Sean Strickland is afraid of you?
Stupid question, but either way.
I don't know, man. So
I don't know, man. So like,
he has to be afraid. So I'm coming for him. So inshallah, we fight with everyone. So the fights in the cage is not that big thing, you know. Hey, if we can make some people happy who's going through hard times, and Muslims, all Muslims watching us, and me and Habib, all the Muslim fighters, Bilal, and we know that all of the kids, our kids, they're watching, they wants to be like us, and they wants to be the strong people. Inshallah, we try to be a good picture for them. The Sean Strickland, all these guys, they should be afraid of us. We fight not just for us, like they do. We fight for all Muslims.
That's right.
I'll say this. Now, that was a fine answer from Khamzat Chimaev. I'm not going to nitpick at any particular point there. But you do get a feel for that they are friendly. He's happy, smiling, laughing, what have you. I did think that last statement was a little weird. Oh, they don't fight for other people. They just fight for themselves. Like, as if other people with other religions or other beliefs don't fight for other people as well. Their family, their friends, what have you. But either way, we'll move on.
Yeah. Now, you've trained with Sean Strickland in the past. What do you make of him? I know it's not good gym etiquette to talk
Not good gym etiquette, but I'm going to ask you anyways, all the same.
about, you know, your sparrings and stuff. But he surprised us with his performance against Israel Adesanya. His striking was quite clean and crisp and efficient. He knocked him down. Did you find him difficult in the sparring?
Fair point, fair question. But again, this is just so you guys get a feel for the relationship.
No, it was the same fighter. I knew this fight gonna happen. Something is strange, but I was thinking like if Sean Strickland not get down like in first round, I was thinking he's gonna win the fight. But I didn't say to anyone. I was just holding myself. So it's happening. So he win the fight. He's one of the like good fighters, not bad. So
Not bad.
but for us, it's no problem, inshallah.
Inshallah, no
So, decent answer from Khamzat Chimaev there. Said that I kind of thought if Sean Strickland didn't get knocked out in the first round, he'd end up winning that fight. Fair enough, whatever.
problem, man. He won't be able to deal with your double leg takedown.
100%.
100% no way. Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing because Sean Strickland has been saying some very negative things. I think everybody would want to see him being demolished. Would you agree?
I just want to point out that's rather aggressive language from such a peaceful religion, but regardless.
And I think that Sean Strickland is the next match for you. Would you agree with this? Do you think Dana White should make that fight?
100%. If he has the fight now, who is winning the fight, he has a good fighter who's fighting with Duplessis, and if he wins against this guy, so for sure we're gonna fight. 100% should be. They promised for me that fight, and so now we're gonna wait who is winning the fight and then take the belt.
You are in Birmingham, and this is
Now, I'm going to point out that this is just my opinion. I think Sean Strickland would butcher Khamzat Chimaev. I think he would survive the first few minutes, and I think that Khamzat Chimaev would eventually tire, and because his striking defense is a little sloppy, his striking in general is a little sloppy, I think Sean Strickland would eventually have his way with him. But regardless, again, none of this was really me critiquing anything. I just wanted you guys to get a feel for the interview style, for how friendly they were and things like that. Now, what I am going to show you, however, is the disgusting shit that this man right here, Mohammad Hijab, on your screen, has said. Because again, I want you to keep this in mind. When you see a guy like Firas Zahabi talking to this guy, when you see a guy like Khamzat Chimaev talking to this guy, when you see anybody, any fighter, talking to this guy, remember the shit he has said, remember the shit he defends, and maybe you might want to think twice about which fighter you like. Now, if you can separate beliefs and opinions, even if they are this fucking disgusting, from who you like as an athlete, fine. But, you know, I for one, don't necessarily do that, and I feel as though a lot of people don't also. But I'm going to pull that clip up for you guys right now. All right, now, here we are. Now, this is the first clip that I want to show you guys. It's a 10-minute long video. I'm not playing the whole video. I just want to show you a few key points of this video because it is utterly fucking disgusting. And here we see, I'm sure many of you recognize, The scrawny little fucking wife beater Sneeko, who in my opinion is a retard, okay, sits here. Some of the you're gonna understand in a minute when I show you what the fuck is said. It's disgusting. To be fair, Sneeko's question to Mohammad Hijab, I appreciate it. Although he couched it quite a bit, I'm gonna point it out when he does, and he accepted the answer for what it was. An answer, by the way, that if somebody of the opposite political leaning gave to Sneeko, he would never fucking accept ever. Okay. I'm honestly mind blown already, and I've listened to this video multiple times, and I know that I'm about to play it for you guys, and I'm already getting excited about talking about it. But either way, dude, let's press play.
I'm not trying to be offensive in
I'm not trying to be offensive.
any sense, but I've had debates with a lot of blue-haired feminists and these types of people, and when I talk about
I've had a lot of beliefs with a lot of debates rather with blue-haired feminists. Okay, now let's hear the next point that he's about to say.
interest in Islam, they bring up the fact that the Prophet Muhammad, he was married to a girl that was underage.
Is a blue-haired feminist the only fucking person on the planet that you could think of that might have a problem with people worshipping a guy who married a 6-year-old and consummated said marriage at the age of 9? Do you know what I mean? It was like he's immediately trying to sweep it under the rug because it came from a blue-haired feminist. You know what I mean? There are plenty of people who are not blue-haired feminists that would have critiques of the religion that Sneeko wanted to convert to, okay? Anyways, dude, I just thought it was funny that he had to say blue-haired feminists and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be offensive and what have you. For clarification, underage is a bit of an understatement, okay? 6 years old did he marry her. 9 years old did he consummate the marriage. For those of you that don't know what that term is, look it up. I'm trying to be careful, as I said, but listen to this fucking answer. And keep in mind some of the answers you hear when people ask hard questions about gender-related topics, okay?
What is the response to that? Because I don't know how to respond to that in a debate.
Yeah, we've done, I'm part of something called the Sapiens Institute, which is the institute which I co-founded. We've done a 3-part series on this question because it's one of the most common questions in the West. Like, why is it that the Prophet Muhammad, married Aisha at the age of 9, or there was
He tries to downplay this. He didn't marry her at 9. He married her at 6. And then listen to how he words this.
Intimacy at the age of 9
Intimacy at the age of 9. We all know what the fuck that means, okay?
so on. And so the first thing I would say is that if you want a more detailed answer of what, I'm about to mention now, you can obviously go and see these. I've done 3-part series. And the second thing I would say is that, look, first and foremost, you could technically believe in Islam and not believe that the Prophet ﷺ or the Prophet Muhammad married Aisha at the age of 9. In other words,
no, I think you can ignore it if you find it uncomfortable, but it's pretty clearly fucking stated, okay? But either way.
But it's not something, Aisha at the age of 9 or that there was some kind of consummation. I'm not saying this is a red herring to the key tenets of Islam.
This is a red herring, meaning it's a distraction to distract people from the truth of the religion, to talk about the fact that the man that they worship, the greatest man on earth who is not Allah, married a 6-year-old and fucked her when she was 9, okay?
Well, let's take the historical account, because quite frankly, there are some revisionist accounts, which some clever. Looking at it myself, I don't agree with those accounts. I think that those accounts are not correct. I think it's correct that he married her at the age of 9. That's what happened, and that's something that she mentions herself, in fact, and it's narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari authentically. So the question is why and how.
Okay, why and how? Let's fucking get to it, buddy. See how much... This is like a way to soften the blow to Sneeko, who is sitting there like a fucking zombie just taking it all in. He goes on this large spiel beforehand, very intellectual sounding. I'll be fair to Mohammad Hijab, he's a very good public speaker. I believe he's an Oxford graduate. And he's able to soften the blow. He's used a bunch of words I bet Sneeko probably doesn't even fucking understand, like consummation and what have you. And now he's about to go into it. And this excuse that he has, this defense of it, in my opinion, is utterly fucking disgusting. And if I was to hear somebody on the opposite political aisle as me, or the opposite what have you, use this argument for almost anything else, it just is not going to resonate.
The real answer is, bro, you're kind of alluding to it before, which is that we have social constructs.
off to a bad start, eh? Social constructs. Where have you heard that before? Maybe from the blue-haired feminists that Sneeko was talking about previously, right? At the beginning of all of this, the blue-haired people who argue that a certain thing is a social construct, therefore we need to just ignore it entirely, let people do what the fuck they want and what have you. Now, what social construct could Mohammad Hijab be speaking about?
Social constructs, not the kind that the feminists and the ones on the far left are talking about, which is that they say sex is a social...
No, not those ones. Gender and sex, we're not talking about those as a social construct. What are we talking about then, Mohammad Hijab?
construct, or like, for example, Judith Butler said sex itself, biological sex, the penis, in a sense, is a social construct. We're not talking about that. We do have some social constructs. And ironically, I think the social constructs are those things which cannot be empirically justified. And I think one of those things is the idea of childhood.
Childhood. Childhood is a social construct. I have heard these arguments before from the types of people who want the term PDF file to be changed into minor attracted person, to the people who don't want those individuals demonized and such. Age is a social construct. I've heard that argument before. And if it was coming from one of those blue-haired feminists that Sneeko's speaking about, if he heard this argument in regards to relationship with children, he would immediately be like, you're fucking insane. How can you say that? What have you? And here he sits listening to it all the same.
I'll be totally honest with you and tell you, how do we determine what is a child? I mean, historically, we've always understood the idea of childhood as corresponding with either biological ability or psychological capability or a combination of both. The ability of somebody to work or to be domestic or have effective domesticality and all these kinds of things. When I looked at the issue from a historical perspective, I started to realize why the West in particular has started to redefine what it means to be a child. And I think...
Redefine what it means to be a child. Just a social construct, the West has this odd idea that you have to be of certain age before you can consent to certain activities, but all right, dude.
I've got the answer. Because, you know, in the 1800s, you'll find that, quite frankly, people were getting married in the United Kingdom at the age of 10 or 12, and in America, all the way down in Delaware, it was actually 9 years old, or 7 years.
So now we take a little bit of a swerve, right? Now it seems as though, oh, he's not defending it today. He's simply defending it in the past, when, 1,000 years ago or however many years ago, when the Prophet Muhammad married a 6-year-old, right? Or 200 years ago, when the legal age in certain states was 7, 9, 10 years old, what have you. So you kind of get the sense that, well, he's just defending it in the past. They didn't know any better, or they thought differently back then. Now we have this new idea, so let's not hold historical figures to the same standard that we would hold them to if they were around today, right? This is why statues of George Washington shouldn't be demolished because he owned slaves, when at that point in time, almost every country on every continent had some form of slavery, right?
It was legal to get married at this age. So when did it shift? It actually shifted here in the United Kingdom. When 1914, obviously, as you know, 1914 to 1918, there was World War I. And after World War I, there was an infrastructural mess in parts of Western Europe. And the ideas of education started to change. So legislatively, there was a law that was put forward in 1924 or 1925, I cannot remember exactly the year, but it was a law that changed the marriage age from 12 years old to about 16 years old. So in England, where I'm speaking from, the age to get married was 12, and then it changed to 16. Now, you might ask, what is the reason? Actually, funny enough, ironically, once again, part of it was to do with some protesting from the first wave feminists. I looked at some Hansard records, which are basically the records of Parliament and so on.
Too much speaking, okay? Too much speaking. He just is speaking as much as he possibly can so that it makes it easier to get a horrible, disgusting point across if you can flower it up, if you can make it seem very intellectual, if you can make it seem like, well, you've done all this research and what have you and blah, 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 blah. But what we get to is like utterly fucking shocking, honestly, the first time I heard it. And you're going to hear it in a minute, hopefully, if he gets to the fucking point and stop trying to flower it up for this brain-dead moron on the right-hand side.
I was wanting to see what exactly the reason was. Another part of the reason, in my opinion, was the fact that education started to be seen as, or when somebody would finish education, would start to be seen as the appropriate time of when adulthood begins. So in the United Kingdom, for example, I think in America it's very similar, the age until compulsory education is 16 years old. So it's almost as if they're telling us, look, you're not a real man, you're not a real woman, you're not an adult yet until you finish the educational program that we have in place for you. You have to be 16 and then you're an adult then.
You know, maybe that's true. But do you think maybe perhaps it's so that somebody has learned enough, had enough life experience so that they can actually properly make informed decisions for themselves and not be 9 years old and consent to something that they have no fucking idea what they're consenting to, no idea what the long-term repercussions, short-term repercussions might be? I don't know.
Now, this is completely alien in the historical landscape. I mean, this has never been.
See, again, we get back to the, well, this is alien in the historical landscape. So it gives you the idea, well, he's just defending it, not from today's standards, he's defending it from way back when we didn't know any better. I'm not going to hold him accountable for the kind of things that we hold people accountable for today.
How any civilization, almost at any point in time, the 5,000 to 6,000 years of human civilizational existence has ever understood what it means to be an adult. Now, I'm not saying, therefore, we should change it and go back to our old days, because it's very difficult now to get a young person of today to do the actions that they were doing yesterday. But what I'm saying is that it makes no sense to take these social constructs, which are not based on biological fact. They are merely social constructs, literally things which have been put in place or have been understood to be okay, aesthetically pleasing, relativistic understandings by liberal people after the First World War and Second World War, to be more particular. It became even more pronounced because there was an even bigger mess then, infrastructurally, and then they needed education even more to fix up economies. And so this idea of childhood corroborating or corresponding or being commensurate with education.
Sneeko has no fucking idea what he's saying. No idea whatsoever. That's what all this language is for. He is trying to make it sound as intellectually sound as possible so that Sneeko is just forced to believe it. And while he does, he's going to weasel in something that I found to be disgusting.
Age, or the end of childhood being when the education ends, became even more prominent. So what I'm saying is that, yes, it did happen according to the most authentic historical account. And no, we don't think there's any problem with it at all. We think that...
We don't think there's any problem with it at all. Not that, well, there wasn't problems with it back then. Obviously, I wouldn't be okay with it today, but...
It's just because we have a different idea of what it means to be a child, which can be tracked historically. But now, if the situation has changed, we'd say that the general principle in Islam is, you can do what you kind of want, so long as... I'm not going to say you can do what you want so long as you harm. You can marry whomever you want to marry, so long as it doesn't cause them harm, physical and psychological.
This is his beliefs today. You can marry who you want to marry. You can engage in intercourse with whoever you want to engage with, as long as it does not cause physical harm. Okay? So now he's not speaking about past. He's speaking about their rules today. Now he's going to go on to elaborate, which this is the most fucking disgusting thing you could imagine he would say. Again, he's not defending the past anymore. He has moved to present times. Their standard is, as long as you're not causing physical harm. Okay, well, what about emotional harm? What about mental harm? What about, like, you're fucking soul crushing a little night? Like, anyways, dude.
So, for example, if I marry a 100-year-old woman, or Sneeko, if you marry with your tank top a 100-year-old woman, and you get involved with her intimately, she might die. I mean, she might have some kind of health.
If you get involved intimately with a 100-year-old woman, she might die, break her hip, break her back, fucking what have you. Do you know what I mean? Her arthritis might act up. Maybe her knees get a little swollen. Maybe you got to help her out of bed after the fact. If you want to go after a great gilf, like a GG fucking ILF or what have you, you could potentially cause her physical harm trying to engage in intimacy with her. However, what does he say next?
Problem. So we would say that, well, if you were to be intimate with a 14-year-old or
a 14-year-old. So he raised it a little bit. He's not going with 9, okay? He's going with 14.
13-year-old who's got huge hips.
13-year-old he added at the end there too.
And huge breasts and huge body.
Hips and huge breasts.
It's not going to have the same effect medically. I mean, no one can make the argument. But in these countries where we live in now, one is legal and one is illegal. So, in other words, you can't marry.
In other words, you can have sex with a 100-year-old woman, but you can't have sex with a 13-year-old who's got huge hips and huge breasts. And he's saying this is silly, arbitrary, not based in fact, science, reality, what have you. He's not speaking about the past. He's speaking about today.
100-year-old woman, but you can marry that girl that's, you can't. So you're a pedophile if you go for the girl that's got the hips. And once again, pedophilia is very relative.
Pedophilia is relative. This is another fucking argument that you would hear from the other side, that you would go crazy if you heard some blue-haired feminists, as Sneeko liked to point out, argue this when it came to almost anything else. Pedophilia is not relative. It is a very strict definition, okay? People attracted to prepubescent children, or adults attracted to prepubescent children. That is based in biological fact. It is not arbitrary, and it is not relative. If you have not gone through puberty, and there's an adult that is attracted to you, that adult's a fucking pedophile, okay? Point blank, period. It's not relative. Anyways.
Because if you go to Russia, the age of consent is 14.
If you go to Russia, the age of consent is 14. It's all relative.
England is 16, and parts of America is 18, and other parts of America is 18, and other parts of the world is 21. So one man's pedophile is another man's good citizen.
Dude.
A liberal actor. So the point of who sets the age is another issue, because it's very arbitrary at this point. But we're not saying, therefore, we should go back to a time where the age is not set. We're not saying any of that stuff. We're just saying that to you...
He did just say that, though. He did just say that, though.
Just as an argument against the veracity of the truthfulness of the religion of Islam is unsatisfactory, I would say. What do you think about that?
Now, Sneeko provides the tiniest bit of pushback, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mohammad Hijab says something more unhinged, but we'll get to that in a second.
And feel free to push back.
I think that's a good explanation.
Good explanation. So childhood's a social construct. Good explanation. You can fuck a 100-year-old, but you know, you could potentially break her hip, break her fucking back, break her knees. All good though. You know, that's legal, but you can't have sex with a 13-year-old because of arbitrary lines and what have you. Very good explanation, says Sneeko. This.
I think 9 is very young. 9 is very young.
9 is very young. 9 is very young.
Yes, I mean, 9 is very young. Yeah, it's very young to us.
Yes.
How old was Muhammad at the time? We don't need to stay on the subject. There's other.
We don't need to say he doesn't want to be offensive. If this was somebody on the left-wing aisle of anything else, he would be going at them as hard as he fucking could. But because it's a Muslim, he doesn't want to do that, right? He doesn't want to get the criticism that you might get, the types of criticisms I might get in the comment section of this video. But Mohammad Hijab goes on to say something even more unhinged.
We could talk. I was wondering because in debates, I want to figure out how to continue because that always comes up, especially from Christians.
I agree.
When the debate comes up, I wanted to see how to navigate that.
Okay, what is young?
And then he changed it though, right? This particular criticism comes up specifically when I'm debating Christians. I thought it was the blue-haired feminist, Sneeko, right? So he kind of sneaks in at the end there. Well, actually, Christians have a problem with this too. And then people might point out, well, in Christian countries, the age of consent was very low back then too. Yes, true. By the way, I'm not religious. Today, however, not many Christians would defend that. They would say, yeah, that was wrong. That's why we changed it. Point blank, period. Not, well, you know, age is a social construct and what have you.
What does it mean to be young?
What does it mean to be young? Now, Sneeko gives 2 pretty decent answers, of which Mohammad Hijab thinks are fucking scientifically measurable. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Innocent, to be childlike, and even not even going through puberty, also physically not matured yet.
Okay, beautiful.
He says innocence and puberty. Puberty is very easy to define. You can see when it happens, what have you, right? But innocence is a little less so. Mohammad Hijab goes on to say that those are both measurable, but either way.
Excellent. So you've mentioned some key terms, right? Innocence and puberty, because these are things which are measurable. Now
they're not measurable. You can see a 9-year-old child. You have no idea what her eyes have seen. You have no idea what she's been through in her life. You have no idea how innocent she is. But puberty, a little more measurable.
We can start to talk about it. Frankly, we believe that Aisha at the time she had gone through puberty.
Frankly, we believe at the time that Aisha, the 9-year-old girl, had gone through puberty. Okay, married her when she was 6, went through puberty. Puberty doesn't happen overnight. So she started puberty at the age of 6. We have a case of precocious puberty. Is that what you're hinging your fucking argument on? Precocious puberty thousands of years ago? Okay, pretty sure it's been proven that girls today go through puberty faster due to the amount of nutrition and hormones in the food and whatever else, right? Very, 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 very rare would a 9-year-old girl have fully gone through puberty to the point where she could be like childbearing, okay? But regardless. Now I'm going to show you one more clip of him defending something even more sick. And again, just so you guys don't forget what this fucking video is about, right? This is about Khamzat Chimaev and his disgusting fucking friend, right? Whereas, as I said, I've defended Khamzat Chimaev when it comes to his relationship with Kadyrov. I've defended Khamzat Chimaev multiple times for that because I feel as though he doesn't really have much say in the matter. But with this one, he does. But I'm going to show you guys the next clip in just a second. Now we have the next clip, okay? Now he is on the streets debating people who have a problem with his beliefs or certain things that are written in the Quran. Again, things that, if there was anything like this written in the Bible, I have a feeling a lot of Christians would just say, that's fucking wrong. We don't go by that today. It is what it is. Not this, right? And one of the selling points, I'm not even going to go, fuck it. Anyways. Okay, we just saw his disgusting defense of having sex with a 9-year-old and why you should be able to have sex with a 14-year-old rather than a 100-year-old or a 13-year-old rather than a 100-year-old. It's okay that he had sex with a 9-year-old because she had gone through puberty fully. This video is going to get fucking demonetized. I don't even care, dude. I want it out. Anyways, listen to this shit.
Just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old.
Subtitles are up on the screen. I don't even know what the fuck to say.
The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal. It would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. Chapter 65.
Halal means good, right? It's the opposite of haram, okay?
Verse 4. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. And the ones who had never been pubescent before.
Divorcing wives who had never been pubescent before, meaning they have not gone through puberty, which is why he used the tender age of 5. Although I find that quite humorous, because when it came to Aisha, well, she had to have started going through puberty at about the age of 6, so either way.
And by the way, this is very important, yeah? I want all Muslims to be aware of this. The reason why we don't have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds or whatever is not because of puberty. Wait a minute, what did you say? It's not because of puberty, because that verse in the Quran actually says lam yahid. They never had puberty before. You can't go around that. The Quran doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in
doesn't say anywhere that they have to be pubescent. So again, he's basically arguing in this clip that it's perfectly fine, according to his holy book, that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old girl. Okay, this is the kind of person that Khamzat Chimaev is hanging out with. Now, it was a charity event. Do you know what I mean? For a certain current conflict. But again, dude, if you were an adult, you know, and you have a large platform, somebody like Khamzat Chimaev does, I feel like you should take some level of responsibility, some level of accountability to know who you are getting involved with. And I would imagine, maybe Khamzat hasn't seen these particular clips, but I feel like this guy's famous enough that most people who know who Mohammad Hijab is know what kind of shit he believes in, right? And as I said, dude, I defended Khamzat Chimaev for his relationship with Kadyrov. This one is indefensible in my opinion, and I just wanted everybody to be aware that keep an eye out, right? If you see your favorite fighter, again, with this guy doing a podcast, remember what he stands for, remember the shit that he argues for, and, you know, it's unhinged to me. Unfortunately, after this conversation, Sneeko ended up... It fucking doesn't matter anyways, dude. Disgusting. The disgusting friend of Khamzat Chimaev, Mohammad Hijab, right? We have criticized people like Conor McGregor for having ties with the Irish mob. We have criticized shit that Israel Adesanya has done. We've criticized a bunch of different fighters, a bunch of like figures in the MMA space for certain relationships with certain individual. Dana White has gotten shit on plenty for hanging out with Donald Trump and the like, right? Lots of fighters have as well. Yet Mohammad Hijab is out here hanging out with Khamzat Chimaev, doing podcasts, wrestling, fucking around, and what have you. Advocates for the disgusting shit that I just showed you, okay? And nobody says a fucking word, which I can't stand these double standards. You know, during 297 Fight Week, we had that media member, Alexander Cayley, go after Sean Strickland for some of the things that he has said in the past, some of the things that he believes. And it baffles my mind why none of these reporters that have a problem when a white American man says something like that, all of a sudden has a problem when, or does not have a problem when it comes out of the mouth of the likes of a Hamza, the likes of a Habib, the likes of, you know what I mean, Islam, any of these guys, right? Now, they're not as outspoken as Sean Strickland, fair enough. They're not tweeting about this shit, but it's been brought up in interviews. Habib has given his take on these things, and nobody's willing to criticize it. And again, how many times have we seen Dana get shit on for hanging out with Trump? Colby get shit on for hanging out with Trump. Gaethje get shit on for hanging out, all these guys, right? Yet Khamzat Chimaev hangs out with a guy that argues for child marriage and nobody bats a fucking eye. Anyways, dude, like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.